started watching The Pitt because everyone and their mom was talking about it. Like, literally, people's moms in real life were talking about it. It's not even just on the internet. Anyway, I got so curious, I finally caved. When I tuned in, I binged all the episodes up until episode 8, I think. Don't quote me on that. When episode 9 dropped, I started watching it live. I didn't really think much of Dr. Santos when I first binged the show, other than finding her slightly grating for the first few episodes. Imagine my surprise when I finally caught up on the show and saw the real-time reactions to this character. The way people talked about her, and some still do, is so impassioned with hatred. Like, you would think she was the most evil person in existence. You would think this woman was, like, murdering patients or something.
Why won't you sing?
Because
Santos
killed my grandma, okay?
And her worst crime, up until that point at least, but I'll get to that later, was what? Giving people bad nicknames?
How you feeling, Crash?
I will admit, her insistence on calling Javati Crash, despite Javati making it very clear she did not like it, did rub me the wrong way. But it's so bizarre that people hold this against her still. 15 episodes and an entire season character arc later. After we've learned everything we know about Santos, people still call her a bully because she was tactless about trying to make friends in the first few episodes. And by the way, Whittaker's nickname is literally a term of endearment by the end of the season. He clearly doesn't mind, maybe even enjoys it.
You're such a huckleberry.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
And Javati isn't bothered by it anymore at the end of the day either. They've been through so much stuff, who even cares?
I should get back to Pink. Stay strong, Crash.
If the characters can get past this, why can't you? So yeah, Santos isn't initially very likable. She's not supposed to be. But the audience reactions to her character were, in my opinion, so egregious, I could feel myself being radicalized in real time.
No, it was the message board that was radicalized!
By the end of the season, Santos was literally my favorite character, and I started out not really caring for her at all. And that's not just because she's a fantastically written character. All of the characters are so well written, and she has a great arc in just one shift, which I think is a really important thing to keep in mind. This entire season takes place in one shift, and Santos went through so much. All of the characters went through so much. We found out so much about her character over the course of one day. And I think you're supposed to start out the season disliking her and end the season with some love for her. And the fact that that arc was able to happen in just 15 hours is a testament to how great the writing is. But I was radicalized because the vitriol for her online was so rampant. It made me defensive, like she was a real person, like a real woman being attacked and unfairly mistreated by fans of the show just because she's a little mean, because she's brash and cocky. And there are dozens, probably closer to hundreds of male characters in media that have these exact traits, and even worse. And these characters are beloved by fans. One of them in this very show, who I think is intentionally a foil for Santos, but that's a topic for another video. It really sucks to say this because the show is so brilliantly written, so focused on character and nuance, and yet it sometimes feels like people lack the ability to appreciate this in the case of Santos, to the point where I've questioned whether people even pay attention to her scenes. It's like they decided to hate her in episode 1 or 2, and there's no changing their mind. She's not given the grace to have character development in a show that's so character-driven. People say she should be humbled when that happened multiple times.
Confidence and ambition are great attributes, especially when paired with respect and humility.
Are you aware you have an aggressive energy, Trinity? Even this conversation feels confrontational.
You're confident, that's good. But there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness.
Is it hubris or ignorance that makes you think that you know more than other residents that have 2 to 3 years more experience and have helped thousands more patients in the emergency department than you have?
I think I still have a lot to learn.
You do.
People say they don't understand why she acts the way that she does, when her backstory was hinted at pretty early on in the season and then explicitly explained later on.
We were young, and someone older was taking advantage of our age.
She's even directly stated that she can be socially awkward.
Sometimes I come on too strong.
Excuse me?
It's a defense mechanism against insecurity.
You're kidding, right?
Yeah. But I am sorry if I hurt your feelings. In case you didn't realize, I use sarcasm and comedy as a shield, or so I've been told.
When she rats out Langdon for stealing drugs, people sided with him, even though she objectively did the right thing. When I watched the events in this episode happen, I was surprised that she was right, because given her previous track record and her personality, I didn't think the show would validate her. And when it did, I fell in love with the writing and the character. The writers subverted all expectations. They cleverly played on the audience's internal biases. Why would we believe an unlikable intern on her first day when she's already made mistakes and rubbed people the wrong way, over a well-respected senior resident, who also happens to be a charming, attractive man?
And then Santos comes in and is kind of the naysayer and is kind of brash, weirdly kind of in a similar way that Langdon is brash.
Yeah.
But for some reason that it's off-putting over here, whereas it's charming over here.
She hasn't been great. She's done some not great things, but if you really look at it, like the two of them are quite similar. They do kind of go about things in very similar ways sometimes, but it's just received differently when it's coming from the like charming, handsome man and then the like go-getter, fresh-faced woman, you know?
Not to mention, the way some people viewed this scene was completely different than how the show presented it. Santos didn't want to rat out Langdon. Robbie basically forced her to.
I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Okay, if there's anything that could affect my ER, I need to know about it, and you have a responsibility to tell me.
And she felt terrible about it afterwards. It's not like she was rejoicing and rubbing it in Langdon's face.
I just wanted to apologize for what happened with Langdon.
Apology accepted.
If I hadn't said anything, he would still...
Nobody's fault but Langdon's. No, if you'll excuse
Well,
me.
it doesn't feel that way.
She makes plenty of mistakes throughout the season. She puts the patient on BiPAP and faces repercussions for that.
His sats were down. I gave the order.
Without clearing it with me.
Honest mistake from the rookie. That's how we learn.
She gets screamed at by Langdon for taking the fall for Mohan for something that she didn't actually do.
It was my fault. Yeah, I wanted to keep going with Ativan and Keppra, but Dr. Mohan had an excellent idea to treat for hypernatremia even before her labs came back.
Which I think is a pretty selfless act.
It was completely inappropriate for him to speak to you that way.
I've heard worse.
But for what it's worth, he's wrong. You're very good at this.
Thank you. It's actually worth a lot.
She threatened a patient who allegedly sexually assaulted his daughter.
You are never going to touch your daughter again. You are never going to look at her or even think about her inappropriately, or Officer Ahmad out there is going to arrest you.
Which you could argue is like ethically wrong, but to not at least empathize with her when it's clearly something she personally relates to is, in my opinion, a little heartless. Maybe this was professionally the wrong thing to do, but you have to commend her for standing on morals. And what is the point of storytelling if we can't empathize with characters even though we might not like or relate to them? She drops the scalpel in Garcia's foot. Remember that? That was terrible for her. I personally would quit on the spot if that happened to me.
Can't stop thinking about your foot.
She is humbled many times before the finale. Yet when she does the Raboa in episode 13, people were mad that Abbott praised her for this.
Okay, you never should have done that on your own, ever. Do you understand? But that was pretty badass. You saved her life. Good job.
People were saying, why would you validate her? She's just gonna keep doing reckless stuff like that. When it's made very clear in the episode, she literally had no other choice.
Can you guys take a new patient?
Not right now. What do you got?
Hypotensive pelvic bleed.
Transfuse 2 units. We'll get to it.
Dr. Robbie, I have a retroperitoneal bleed.
Get Abbott.
He's busy.
Okay, stabilize and find a surgeon.
And she saved the patient's life.
What are you doing?
Prepping for Reboa.
Are you crazy? Did Abbott approve this?
He said, do what you have to do. Attendings are all tied up.
People don't want to admit when Santos does something right. Anyway, I got a little carried away defending her actions, but that's because the backlash she faces is so disproportionate compared to everyone else. She's not allowed to make mistakes or have flaws, which every single character does, and that's what makes them interesting. I love that the show refused to humble her when everyone was in the streets demanding it with pitchforks. She already learned her lesson multiple times. It just wasn't enough for you. It gets to a point where I start to question whether you just want her humbled or you want her to be humiliated as well. Why do you need her to mess up more drastically than anyone else? Why do you need her to kill a patient? So you can hold her to a different standard? When Whitaker accidentally kills a patient in the first few hours of his shift, everyone understands that it wasn't his fault, that it happens to every doctor.
Truth is, you're not a real doctor till you've lost at least one patient. You got off easy, it wasn't your fault. Not all of us can take comfort in saying that.
Santos is not afforded the same space for nuance and complexity that every other character is. And that's upsetting because I think she's a really interesting character. I mean, she literally offers Whitaker a place to stay with no rent at the end of the season.
Okay, that is extremely generous, but no, I can't afford to pay you rent right now.
How are you at cleaning and fixing things?
And yet people still argue that she has zero empathy.
May I ask why you did that?
What?
Took the blame for a delay in care, which didn't belong to you, and gave me credit for a save that did belong to you.
Can you check for me, please?
Sure, of course, just after I finish this. You're gonna be okay. You okay, Huckleberry?
Yeah.
You sure? I know it's tough in there with all the bodies.
Yeah.
Dawn, I can charge your phone for you.
Thank you.
I'd like to try and get a little more out of him. See if I can get him to confess to something.
I've seen your bedside manner.
Okay, that is reserved for assholes. I don't want this kid slipping through the cracks.
I just don't want to be here anymore.
Then let's have you talk to a professional who can help you with those feelings.
So I'm sorry if this video lacks analysis and comes off more as me just complaining about the misogyny in fandom culture and society at large, but this character has caused such extreme reactions, and in both directions. Like, I'm obviously also very passionate. I'm not saying you have to like Santos, and I'm not accusing you of being misogynistic if you don't. I'm just saying it's a little ignorant to not at least examine why you feel so negatively about her in comparison to other characters, and acknowledge that there's a double standard. And I hope for people to challenge their biases, to overcome this, because characters and storytelling can be so much more enjoyable and thought-provoking if you do.